What's going on, Trollsters? I'm talking about the N64 again today. Ever since I did an unboxing of this on my channel, I have been on a tear looking for more Nintendo 64 games. And with only 296 North American copies of Nintendo 64 games, it's not a terrible system to collect for. But like anything, there's always the top of that mountain, the holy grail, the rare, the elusive, and the expensive games you got to keep your eye on. I want to talk about a handful of the top games that are expensive. They're going to be locked behind a cabinet at your local game store, and you're going to have to fork over some of that hard-earned cash to free them. I use pricecharting.com and eBay to find out the most expensive games, and I'm not going to list the price here because you can look it up yourself because it changes every day. Just know these games are not going to be easy to find. Stick around. Let's get right into it. Alright. First one up is actually a unique game in that the loose and even complete in box copy of this is not that rare or expensive. We're talking about Rampage 2 Universal Tour. Rampage is a classic arcade game that has been ported through console generation, through console generation, through console generation. And what makes this rare is that this actually came in a variation through Walmart only in a big box. Now, big box PC games aren't that rare. Big box games, even on the PlayStation 2 and some of the other consoles, are a little bit more seen than the Nintendo 64. There is not a lot of big box Nintendo 64 games. And what makes this one so ridiculous is it came with a plush keychain. That's right. The game, not that rare. The keychain and the big box are literally what make this one of the most collectible Nintendo 64 games. So the game itself you can find pretty cheap anywhere, not that rare. But if you found one of these keychains, I don't care if it's been sitting in your garbage can for 6 years, take it out, put it in the dishwasher, it is worth more than half of the Nintendo 64 games on this list. It is that rare and that expensive. So really, the game, the keychain, and the box are one complete package. So if you're a complete in box collector, have fun with this one. For me, I just want the loose copy, so Rampage 2 is actually not that rare. But if you were trying to collect all of the complete in box stuff, this one is elusive. Okay, the next one up is considered the rarest of the widely released games. Games you can buy loose, complete in box, it doesn't matter. And that's Clay Fighters 63 1/3 Sculptor's Cut. That's right. Sculptor's Cut. Now, what makes this game so incredibly rare is it was a Blockbuster exclusive, which means the window of opportunity was literally non-existent. You had to find this game at Blockbuster, and that's the only way you could get it. It's not a whole lot different from the original Clay Fighters game, which many people have. It's just an updated version. Imagine like an expansion pack on the old time's sake. So Sculptor's Cut was a Blockbuster exclusive, which made it rare enough as it was, but to actually find this game complete in box is almost impossible unless you want to fork over a ton of cash. But even loose, Clay Fighters is a really hard game to find, the Sculptor's Cut edition. The game is actually really fun. Clay Fighters is a really fun claymation type fighting game, so that alone makes it fun for people to play it. But for collectors, this is definitely one of those holy grail items and probably the rarest of all the games that don't have a weird big box or anything attached to it. Just the game itself is going to be really hard to find. Making another appearance is another big box game. Now again, this game is not necessarily so rare as much as like the game before it with Rampage. The big box included in the figurines are what make this such a rare game to find. And that is actually Disney's Tarzan. Now Tarzan is actually a good game. It's an action kind of platformer that is really underrated and maybe even considered a hidden gem for Nintendo 64 fans. The nice thing is, again, it's not that hard to find the game loose. But since this was a exclusive game in a big box with a toy figurine, the rarity scale spikes this thing up so high that you're probably not going to find it. This is one of those games, again, that if you have the figurine lying around, you are doing okay. But big box games on the N64 were rare enough as it was, and to find them complete in box is absolutely insane. So there you go. Tarzan, if you see it in box or you see it with the little figurine somewhere, put that thing away, lock it up in your safe, do not let it go. Who'd have thought that Nintendo's third home console would be home to a rare and expensive bowling game? That's right, Super Bowling is one of the rarest and most collectible games on the N64. Grab your bowling shoes, Drink some Keystone Light, because you were in for a treat if you own this game. But I don't care if you were the 1986 league champ at your local bowling alley. You did not buy this game for a couple of reasons. Here's why. It came out right before the GameCube got released. This is a 2001 release, late into the console's life cycle. Secondly, it's a third-party sports game that had a full $60 price tag attached to it. If you had the choice, at the time, in 2001, to get Zelda, Mario, Mario Kart, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, or any game for that matter at $60, you were going to pick that over bowling. So the chances of someone spending $60 on a third-party bowling game pretty much drops the odds to nothing. Well, because of that, now the game is impossible to find, and you would have been smart to buy it for $60 because you are not going to find it for that price. Loose, complete in box, new, yeah, it's not going to happen. It's a spender little one. Next up, I'm going to bunch together a ton of games into one, because I don't really consider these necessary to complete a collection. With 296 games, if you have a copy of every game, that completes the collection. If you're a hardcore collector and you got to have every variant, this is where it gets crazy. There is a bunch of not for resale games, whether they were pack-ins, whether they were the games that you were showing at like an EB Games or GameStop, that were games that were included in some sort of bundle. There's about a dozen or so games that are not for resale. Majora's Mask, Turok 2, Donkey Kong 64, Pokemon Snap, GoldenEye, Diddy Kong Racing, Yoshi's Story, and even 1080 Snowboarding. These games would otherwise not be on the list because they're really not that rare and expensive. But since they have the little tag that literally says not for resale on them, it makes the price skyrocket. For me, I just want a copy of all of the games. I don't care if it's the not for resale variant. These games can be found in the wild fairly reasonable without that sticker, but if you're a hardcore collector, if there is a not for resale tab on your game, you might want to look it up because it's probably worth a little extra coin. Worms Armageddon. Who'd have thunk? The Worms franchise has a great place in gaming history, and for good reason. The strategic blasting of your opponents with a wide arsenal of fun weapons in a turn-based combat setting sounds simple enough, but it makes for some hilarious and fun gameplay. But for some reason, during the initial run of 3D gaming, this Worms title got stuck right in the dirt. And I think mainly it's because at the time when 3D games came out, you wanted to play them in 3D. So any 2D style game, such as Worms Armageddon, really kind of got left in the dust a little bit because you saw this and you went, no, that was last generation. I don't want to play an SNES style game on the Nintendo 64. I want to go full 3D. Now, little do we know, all of the 2D games actually hold up graphically much better than this first gen 3D stuff, but at the time you wanted a 3D game, and Worms Armageddon was definitely not 3D. The gameplay still holds up, it's still fun, but at the time Worms Armageddon really wasn't that sought after because you could play on other ways, other consoles, and it really wasn't a huge change from other variations. And when you had an N64, you wanted to use that 64-bit power, and Worms Armageddon just didn't quite give you that feeling. So, this is another one of those games. If you can find it, grab it. Tagged is the future of racing. This game has been a largely forgotten relic in the 3D racing genre. Stunt Racer, a game that's become legendary. Want to know why? It was a Blockbuster exclusive, but not like Clay Fighter 63 1/3, Sculptor's Cut, where it was actually widely distributed and then we got an additional version. This was a complete exclusive from beginning to end. The only way you would ever play Stunt Racer is if you rented it or you somehow bought it after the rental thing was over. So this game is extremely rare. To find a complete in box is even more rare, but loose is rare enough. For those of you who rented games back in the day and kept them for that extra period after the 5 days, you know those rental fees were asinine and ridiculous. But if you were lucky enough to keep this game from a 5-day rental into a long-term ownership, that may have been one of your best gaming decisions of your life. See, sometimes procrastination does pay off. Only once in a while. And this game got fairly good reviews. You perform a bunch of aerial tricks, you have a ton of cars, you can attach jets to them, you can mod them out, you get points for doing the different stunts, hence the name Stunt Racer. And like I said, it got decent reviews, but since only about 87 people ever played this game, it's become incredibly collectible, and as you can expect, incredibly expensive. Last up is Turok Rage Wars. But why is this game rare? Because you can find it normally in its black cartridge all over the place for a really reasonable price. But if you found this game in a gray cartridge, well, that's where the expensive, rare, and collectible portion of this will hit you. It's funny how gray cartridges were everywhere, yet this game, since it came mainly in a black cartridge, is now collectible because of a plain gray one. Turok Rage Wars is not part of the continuity of the Turok timeline, but rather a spin-off game that is an arena battle. It's mainly focused on multiplayer. You go in, you kill the enemies in an arena, you fight the boss. It's actually pretty cool that way. It takes place in the Turok world, but it does not have anything to do with the actual lore. It's not anything to do with the actual timeline that takes place. It's just a spin-off game. And if you can find this in the gray cart, then that is where the money is to be had. Otherwise, hey, if you're collecting like me, just get the black cart, save your money, and complete your collection. Alright folks, that's going to do it for the Nintendo 64 Rare and Collectible playlist today. Some of these games I saw out in the wild when I was younger. I remember seeing Clay Fighters at Blockbuster. I specifically remember seeing it and thinking, I've already played Clay Fighters, why do I need that? Ugh. Ooh, what a heartbreaker. So anyway, let me know if you have any of these games, if you've seen any of these in the wild. Do you have a not for resale game that you ran to your collection real quick and looked at to see if you've still got it? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for liking. If you love the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell notification. As always, keep trolling, keep rolling. I'll see you next week.